Welcome to the American Diversity Report podcasts, where we interview diverse change makers and creative innovators. I'm Deborah Levine, editor-in-chief of the American Diversity Report, and your host today. And with me is Kat Oyler. This is a wonderful interview with someone who is Vice President, Clinical Transformation, Immunology, and Integration Leader at Momenta Pharmaceuticals, Inc. and WiSTEM2D University sponsor, a fellow woman in STEM passionate fan. Welcome, Kat.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Really excited to be here and so grateful for your focus on this very important topic.
Oh, my pleasure. Tell me, how did you get involved in this wonderful, I can't even find the words. It's who we are, isn't it?
It is. I think, advocating for other women and advocating for diversity in general is a part of many of our DNA in many ways. And, you asked how I got involved in this, and it's actually not a science story, but it is a very personal story. So I have played team sports my whole life. And when I was 5 years old, we lived in Texas, and I was in a soccer league of all 5-year-old little girls. There were enough little girls interested, 45 years ago in playing soccer in Texas that we had a whole league. And my team had yellow jerseys. We were allowed to pick our team name. And so we came up with the Yellow Butterflies, which did not strike fear in the hearts of our opponents, Deborah. That did not scare anyone. But we had the best time. And, it, for me, cemented something very early on around, working as part of a team and always making sure that people succeed together, that it's not, I'm not a big believer in life being a solo sport. Like, I always believe in working with people. But I loved sports and I played them my whole life, starting with that. But when I was in third grade, we moved to Florida and I wanted to play soccer again. I mean, I'd been playing for several years at that point. And we looked around and there were not a girls' league in Florida. And so my parents told me that, there wasn't any place for me to play. And as my mom would say growing up, and as my boss would probably say now, I always ask, but why? Like, why isn't there a league? And so as a 7 or 8 year old, I just kept asking, but why? And my parents kept trying to explain it. And apparently the answers didn't satisfy me. And so they finally got permission for me to join the boys' league. And I played soccer in a league of all boys. And I think from that moment on, I was actually really committed to this concept of, if there was something that I wanted to do and I couldn't do it, to ask, but why, and figure out a path forward. And really importantly, actually, my coach, and I found our team picture the other day, interestingly, because I'm about to turn 50. And so I was looking for pictures of growing up. I was the only girl, and on our team, we also had only one African-American boy. So like, there was a lot of what we're facing nowadays of very, majority dominated situations. But my coach was very smart, because little kids often only look at the ground when they're playing soccer, and they only look up when there's feet in front of them and they can't move the ball forward anymore. And so these boys would look up and they would see my pigtails and they would just stop dead in their tracks because they weren't expecting a girl. And so my coach put me on defense and I could get the ball away every single time. And so it taught me, this combined experience taught me these three things. Like, one, the importance of being part of a team and bringing people along with you. 2, the importance of challenging things when, a door is closed or something's not, available to you and you want to do it. And 3, the importance of recognizing your diversity, recognizing where you're different and seeing it as a strength and finding the people who will help you bring that to reality. So And now that's led, since I am a woman in science, to saying, how can I bring other women along? How can I help change this dynamic and open these doors for other women? And fortunately, I work at a company that really embraces that too, and wants to put these programs in place to change the playing field, if you will, for women all over, and really help improve this for us moving forward.
Oh, what a great story. I love it. Playing soccer at 5. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Now, I grew up in Bermuda where you'd play soccer, but my older brother was the one. And
Yeah.
the boys really did. Um, I was grateful that my brother, being a big tease, said to me, okay, try to get the ball away from me, kid. And that's what we did in the basement for years.
Yep. Yep.
And when it came time in high school for the soccer team to be there, the coach says, hey, Levine, you're center. I said, excuse me? She said, you're British, you know stuff, you're center.
Yeah. Yeah.
My brother played the soccer. She said, close enough. Just believe. And it's wonderful to have people not only mentor you, but push you forward.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
give you that opportunity, whether you thought you had it or not. And we're looking at that with women in STEM quite a bit, are we not?
Absolutely, Deborah. And I think, your experience also probably taught you resilience. And, sometimes it's not that they're teaching you what to do, it's that they're teaching you, how to fall and get back up and how to keep fighting for something. And I'm guessing you learned that when you were thrown onto the soccer field.
Pretty much. Do or die.
Yep, yep. Absolutely.
Well, it's good that we do get a chance to learn these lessons when we're young, and then continually apply them as we get older.
Absolutely.
So we refine, our responses. Although I will still say sometimes, what? Who? I'm just minding my own business, which makes my whole family laugh. So, so it's amazing to me that we live in a time where a lot of work has been done for bringing women into the STEM world, and then COVID hits.
Yep.
Right? And it affects everything so much. It's almost unpredictable these days. But what has it done in particular with the women in STEM movement and programs? What's happening?
Yeah, it's, look, COVID is something that has just changed almost every aspect of life as we know it. We mentioned just in passing resilience and talk about the need for resilience when you're facing something like COVID, like a global pandemic. And what we're seeing is that COVID has really disproportionately impacted women in the workforce in general, women in research in particular. And it's more important than ever for us to think about how we can help those women become resilient. And just to, I'm a data girl. I think all of us who have a STEM background, like we love data. And, just to give you some stats that really, I think, bring to life how real this problem is. We know that over 70% of women who were applying for research funding were unable to get it during this time, which, from your academic career, takes you off of tenure track in many instances. It's part of moving up in the academic world is getting that research funding, showing that you're growing your lab, being able to then publish. And when you're not able to get that funding and it derails you, it's very hard to make that back up. We've even found things that female scientists with a child who is 5 years old or younger have said that the amount of time that they can spend on their research has declined by over 17% since COVID hit. And we're not seeing the same with men. And so as a result, we're also seeing that there's been a decline in the number of women on peer-reviewed papers. During this time, we've seen that only 1/3 of all published papers about COVID have female authors. So it's really a very big problem. And yet, at the same time, we know in the world the importance of research. We know the importance of biomedical research in particular, and the way that that's helped to give us hope, to pull us out of where this global pandemic was heading. And you can't leave half of the world's population behind and not have those people contributing not have women contributing at an equal level to the scientific disciplines, or to the other disciplines we include in STEM2D. But we know for certain how important this work is right now. There's really been a light shown on it, and we need to make sure that we're working together to overcome this gap and this deficit that's been growing as a result of COVID.
Wow, we sure do. My goodness. Oh my. You
It's
know,
sobering.
it definitely is. For a while, I was the research coordinator for a College of Engineering and Computer Science,
Oh, great.
assisting in the writing and the grants and all of what you're talking about. And as it was, this was pre-COVID, we lost a lot of women before they would graduate.
Mhm.
And they would just go into supposedly easier majors. And I can't imagine what's happening now. So I understand why you are so involved and a sponsor of Johnson's WiSTEM2D University program. Let's see what that's about, and what is that doing and for them and for you.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. So J&J's WiSTEM2D program actually was started several years ago now, I think 6-ish years ago now, and really in recognition of this as a growing problem and something that J&J was very committed to addressing. And you know, a group of leaders were brought together to think about, you know, really what was the problem that we wanted to solve and how should we go about solving it. And when we were looking at it holistically, we realized it wasn't something to just solve within J&J, because it's not just about, are we hiring the right number of women? Are we advancing women at the right rates? All of which is very important. But there is a more systemic challenge, which is that you weren't seeing the pipeline of women coming up. And so just trying to address it at sort of the end of the pipeline at the professional level doesn't address the fundamental problem. So we put together an end-to-end program, starting like at pre-K and kindergarten with what we call our youth pillar. So that's from pre-K up through high school, and focusing on how do we get, you know, young girls through to young women like enchanted and intrigued by the STEM2D disciplines and maintain that interest even at some of the early drop-off points where we see, like in 2nd grade or 4th grade or 6th grade, where, you know, already you see the pressures that are put on girls around, like, well, don't you want to just be in English, or don't worry, like you don't have to be good at math. And really working to overcome those and make sure that these young girls are staying enchanted with what you and I know is just a wonderful set of area of study to stay involved in. And then, you know, as you look globally, and outside of the US, many young women have to decide in like what we would consider their high school years, whether they want to go on to study the STEM2D disciplines in, you know, what we could consider university. Now in the US, you make that decision when you decide what to major in university, but elsewhere globally, it's handled differently. So we really need to make sure that in the equivalent of the high school years, we're encouraging those young women to select that field of study moving forward so that they're not closing out options. That's all part of the youth pillar. And we have some fabulous partners that we're working with on that to really expand our reach. In the university pillar, which is what I have the privilege of being the sponsor for, we're really focusing on two things. One is for women pursuing their undergraduate degrees, how do we get women to declare a major, declare a field of focus for their studies in a STEM2D discipline, and then ensure that they follow through and graduate with that degree rather than changing their mind partway through. And then focusing on women in, advanced academic careers, where we were seeing really a very sharp drop off between the associate and assistant professor level. And how do we prevent that drop off so that you can get more of these leading women academics who can go on to really influence fields of research and fields of study, and frankly, be the mentors and role models for the young women coming up? Because if you don't see yourself represented, you're much less likely to follow through. And that's where we created our Scholars Award, to really focus on helping to provide that research funding, helping to get women in these 6 fields of science, technology, engineering, math, manufacturing, and design. It's a mouthful. To continue progressing their academic careers. And then the final piece is our professional pillar, which is all about, like, inside J&J, how do we make sure we develop and retain and advance the great women in the company. That's the only pillar actually that has any strings attached. Like, that is about J&J. The other 2 pillars are about, improving the ecosystem for all women. We have no rights to anything. We don't reach through to anything. It's just really about a rising tide, raises all boats. And that's really what we're looking to do, is to more holistically create that pipeline of talent that can come through and drive the great breakthroughs in scientific research that we need moving forward.
Wonderful. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm not quite sure what to ask Ness. It's also wonderful to do this and to bring these young people into the field, to mentor them, to help them, to promote them. It's so necessary. Otherwise, it will never happen. Right. It will just be left out. I will share with you that my own daughter is a doctor.
Oh, that's awesome. You must be very proud.
Oh, you have no idea. One of the things I did for her when she was still in diapers is I bought these magnets of numbers and letters and put them up in the very bottom of the refrigerator so she could sit there, because she couldn't stand yet even, and play with them.
That's awesome.
And I thought, well, let's see what happens. My very own science experiment.
I like it. I like it. You were creating the spark. You were enchanting her from a young age.
Yes, it was. And I have been just amazed to follow her journey, but it's not always been easy. Yeah. And in COVID, being a doctor, a lot of challenges.
And must have been very hard.
Gosh, it's hard for her. It's hard to watch. But the beauty of this is, right, that while we women are facing so many challenges, we have so much to offer, right, in terms of our understanding of how people work and families work and children, that can be melded, with the science. And that's what we need.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what are your next steps going to look like? What's the next few years look like for you?
So with the Women in STEM program, we're really looking at expanding our reach globally and making sure that in countries where we've had a harder time getting our message out, we're leveraging communication channels that are consistently used in those countries. For instance, on the Scholars Award, we discovered that for some countries where they don't have as high bandwidth internet, it was hard to submit the application on our website. So we've done things like create a way that people can just email in an application or have lower bandwidth capabilities. And those may sound silly, but those are the learnings when you're first building out a program. And then when you're really working to ensure that for an award focused on diversity and inclusion, we are being as inclusive as we possibly can by making this available to everybody who wants to apply for the research. And for J&J, this is something that we've been committed to for a very long time. I don't know if you know much about the history of J&J, but of our very first employees, there were 14 employees in the beginning of J&J, and 8 were women. So this was, over 125 years ago, that more than 50% of our workforce when the company was first started were women. And in 1908, I think was the year, we hired our first 4 PhDs. And one of those first 4 PhDs was a woman. And this is at a time when only 3% of all people who had PhDs were women. So 25% of our early PhD workforce was women. So this is something that we've been committed to forever, and we remain very, very committed to, and looking at, how we can continue to grow the awards, how we can continue to grow the reach and impact we have so that we can reach every corner of the world and help stimulate interest in the STEM2D disciplines, I think is going to be really, really important. And that's something that we're really looking forward to and committed to moving forward.
Wonderful, wonderful. I did not know that about J&J.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that history and for the mission that continues. It's amazing and much needed. Is there anything else? Yes.
Well, and Deborah, you're in New York, right?
Actually, right now, I am in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I have been in New York, Bermuda,
Okay.
Cincinnati, Chicago, Tulsa, but now I'm a Southerner.
You're a Southerner. Okay, we're going to get that accent. Well, if you make it back up here, we do have actually a quite amazing museum about J&J's history on our campus in New Brunswick. And we can take you through some of this. We have pictures of the early workforce. We had one of the very first clean rooms that ever existed was at J&J to produce like sterile gauze and sterile bandages that were being used, and it was run by women. And we have pictures of that are actually really fun to look at. So if you or any of your listeners are in the area, we can help arrange for a tour of the museum. It's actually really fascinating.
I love it. Audience, I hope you're listening. I may get back up there in the not too distant
Just let me know. Just drop me a line.
Wonderful. And have a chance to meet in person.
I would love that.
We all know that we are looking forward to such times, but in the meantime, this has just been excellent chance to talk with you, hear what you're doing, what J&J is doing for people like our young ladies who are future STEM experts.
Absolutely. We imagine a world where like major discoveries are coming from the women who are funding today. And, we are very much looking forward to that. And if you or anybody listening to this wants to know more about the program, the company website is jnj.com, and then just / WiSTEM2D, WiSTEM, the number 2, and then the letter D. And I think hopefully we can link to that because I know that's a mouthful. We love our acronyms at J&J. But there's a lot of great information, a lot of really fascinating stories about the women who've won the award. And I encourage anybody who wants to be inspired to look at these young women and the work that they're doing. And it's really cool stuff, Deborah. If you're a teenage girl wondering if a role model can look like you, go look at these women. They're just doing tremendous work. Oh,
thank you for adding that. We will make sure to put that URL on the page with this podcast so people can easily access it and see what you're talking about and be inspired and go forward. I know that I am. I'm going to pull out some of my memories from teaching technical writing at the College of Engineering and Computer Science. It was such a joy. So thank you so much for sharing all of this, inspiring us and giving us all of this hope for the future. Audience, thank you for joining us too. We'll see you again next time. Kat, stay on the line. After we've recorded, I have something to ask you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us, Deborah. This was really lovely.
Oh, a true pleasure. Are you kidding? So take care, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.